let's get with our friend Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor. She is a best-selling author. Her book out right now, Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. Tammy, you were of the most confident and encouraging leading up to the election, and we're so grateful to have you back on the show after the election to talk about it.
Yeah, last time we talked, it was coming up, and I knew the country was not ambivalent. I knew they weren't confused. And so someone was going to do well, and it wasn't going to be Kamala Harris.
Yeah. We would say in here, there's no way that this campaign can materialize into a presidency. But there was just something in the back of America's mind going, I got to hold my breath.
But here's what we've also seen as the vote has continued. I've seen one report where her popular vote is now the third largest or the fourth largest, in the modern era, that it is giant. And that's what concerns me. So you hear some people say, well, woke is dead and it's all dead. And, no, it's not. If you've got over 70 million people voting for Kamala Harris, it is a worrisome framework about certainly the establishment machine, but about the power of media, what fear can do, which is what prompted the book, right? You get people who just stop thinking and go into fight or flight mode and don't ask questions. So the good news is that more people voted for Donald Trump and swept the swing states, swept the blue wall, in those kinds of things that count. But it does matter, this number. And in the meantime, of course, as all of us have been saying, is that the campaign, that was hard work. They did a great job, but we've really been working toward this point, Annie, for a decade, if not longer, when we realized with the first election of Trump was kind of our first warning from the Hill saying, we don't like what's happening. And it wasn't taken seriously. They were exposed for being the beasts that they are, the establishment. And now here we are again, and the work is just beginning.
Yeah. That's kind of with that thought, Tammy Bruce, when you're talking about the work beginning, we do see way inexplainable how many people did still support Kamala Harris across the country. But for Donald Trump to overcome the accusations, the allegations, the legal challenges, the bullets that he had to overcome to get to this point where he is now President-elect Donald Trump, what did people choose to vote for that he needs to make sure he delivers on?
It is just I've spent the last few weeks just kind of stunned still, even though, being in it every day and knowing it's just such a confluence of events that were perfect, the perfect storm. But part of it was not just because of the assassination attempt, not just because of certain, unplanned dynamics that occurred. What he did constantly was talk about the specifics of policy. And he had his first term as an example that, the first term, it was kind of a wing and a prayer that this guy would do what he said he could do. Now we knew he had that, so he had that in his back pocket. But he also brought up new ideas. And what I hear all the time from people, and I've just moved, so I'm in this new place, and there's workers that come in and an exterminator and some handymen. And the thing they always ask when this comes up, and I'm in an area where it does, I'm not in New York City any longer, is when will the tax thing happen? And that's the phrase, the tax thing. The no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime. And one of the technicians for the exterminator said, I worked overtime once for a big job, and it was $2,000 worth. I got in my check $900.
Oh.
And then, so I explained, I said, look, this is about federal taxes, right? You're still dealing with state and city taxes. But but that's what they wanted to know. They should. So taxes, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on the Social Security. Those are the things that the working man and woman remember. It's very specific. It can happen in a very specific way. That has to occur. And plus, of course, he can chew gum and walk at the same time. The border, the damn freaking border, has got to be stopped. It's like you've got a patient bleeding out in the emergency room. You close up that wound, and that, because it's, once again, we're in the emergency room. So you close up that wound, and then you begin to think about treatment. The deportations, Americans are even more for that now than they were when he first mentioned it. It was always a majority around the country. So actions that can be taken immediately on day one that are with his primary promises that connected him with the daily lives of the American people. The problem is, I would say we should expect a recession or even stagflation next year. We are finding new reports from Congress that there is a cooking of the books, which shouldn't surprise us when it comes to interest rates and all of that. Just like this 12,000 jobs created in the last report was shocking, and it proved that the previous job reports were a little wonky.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to have a difficult year economically, but the right team is in office, and Trump needs to act on the immediate things that will directly affect people, like the tax promises, the border, and physical things that we can see are occurring.
Yes, absolutely. Best-selling author. Her book, Fear Itself, is out right now. We're speaking with Tammy Bruce, who's also a Fox News contributor. You talked about being in New York and wherever you've moved to right now. I know you've been around the country. I work in St. Louis, which is a blue city in a very red state, but I live in Illinois, in southern Illinois, which is a red area of a blue state. Lord knows how Chicago attracts those Democratic policies. You're seeing across the country, though, even the bluest of blue places still manage to inch towards Donald Trump or an alternative to what they had been experiencing before. And I'm wondering if you think that delivering on no tax on tips, these types of policies, is what might make that hold and stick and maybe even see progress in the next cycle.
Well, I'm hoping there's also a lot of people you see on social media who are, moving into like a deep depression. They've been told it's Hitler and Mussolini and it's the end of democracy. And that is like a mental illness that has been provoked by the constant psychological badgering of people by the left and by the Democratic Party. And none of it was true, right? And this is like Mika and Joe go to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Hitler Mussolini man.
That's wild.
And everyone's like shocked. Well, it's because it's been a lie. It's fake. It's performance. So I'm very happy to realize that these people who are sitting back thinking everything's going to hell, when they start seeing their lives getting better, now they might resent having been wrong and been lied to, but their people, thank goodness, are going to find that they were lied to, and that's better than, Trump being Hitler. I mean, it's just so, for those who are been independent or were brought on because of Bobby Kennedy's endorsement, or young people because of Elon. These are people, especially like Elon and Vivek, who, when it comes to business, just like with Trump, they know that time is of the essence. You don't get an idea in business and think it's going to be on a 10-year timeline. You must get things done quickly. That's how Elon has accomplished everything he has. So people are going to see this. Once you unlock the freaking door to get out of the establishment that is in freaking cement and dying, once you say enough is enough, you're going to see these new, broader ideas. I've heard from a couple liberal friends who, because they're Democrats, they vote for Kamala, and then they all said, I'm like, she didn't win, but I'm very excited about what the next year is going to look like. Because people know that it's not the end of the world, and they're so they satisfied their family or their community, as everybody, because your community, and then they know, though, that they're going to, frankly, be saved by the people that actually won. And I think this is the way to do it. It's an easy way to move into the fact that life changes, and that sometimes you've got to do the right thing, and that's maybe party politics is a thing of the past.
Yeah, it's so interesting, especially the way you put it, and you've literally written the book on it in Fear Itself. But I think it's very important for us as family members and friends and coworkers with people who
Mm-hmm.
are distraught right now, to separate the fear
Mm-hmm.
mongers from the fearful, and to make sure that
Yes.
the fearful, they're going to have to come to terms with the fact that it's not as scary as they thought it was going to be. That doesn't mean they're going to change policy on everything, but the fearful among us, we need to be ready to embrace them if they even raise an eyebrow towards what the fear mongers have been selling them for so long.
Well, yes, and that's part of, look, we don't know now with the news from Comcast, which owns NBC, we don't know if they're even going to have MSNBC to watch soon, because that's going to be sold off along with CNBC. I prefer, of course, Fox Business. But, as if media chooses to continue to lie, even as late as last Saturday after the election, Clyburn from South Carolina was saying to somebody on TV that Trump is still Hitler and Mussolini. And Mika and Joe couldn't explain why they would go visit Hitler. But there's got to be an admission that this has been performance, and not that they'll do it, but as long as Americans who are very upset right now see the genuine nature of the choices Trump is making and how their lives improve, family members have to think about embracing people, but I think ultimately we shouldn't have to look to someone else for our ability to recognize the reality of a situation. But if we know after COVID, we had a huge mental health crisis in this country. I think that Kennedy is going to have a tremendous impact on the issue of physical and mental health in addressing issues like drugs, right? The overprescription of drugs, the issue of psychotropics, perhaps, things added into food, and they're got to have a conversation about ending commercials for pharmaceutical prescriptions.
Yes.
That we've got to stop being manipulated by the pharma companies to ask for a drug. And that's only started in 1997. That is not something we've ever done. And that changed. And that means people go in like the doctor is like the CVS saying, I want X drug. And the ads, something as simple as the ads for drugs have got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and the incentivization of the doctors to prescribe said drugs.
Yes, exactly. So this is where you just get this, this vicious circle of the medicating of the people of this country and the overdiagnosing of people. And then we do have some and then we have to recognize that what these elections have done with these false claims of the end of the world, and I talk a bit about it in the book, is that you're creating this mental health crisis specifically so that people won't ask you questions and will do as they're told. How is that not domestic violence? How is that not psychological terrorism?
Yeah.
And so we all deserve better. There's so many layers to this, but what Trump is doing is the beginning of making a difference. And remember, Annie, of course, we've only really got 2 years.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. We got the midterms. And then who knows what's going to happen in 28. But we've got to make things happen in a dramatic way that keeps the people that voted for Trump with him.
Yeah. We were saying earlier, I was born in 1984, so I'm 40 years old. I think that the first 6 months of Donald Trump's second term might be the most transformative period of government in my lifetime. I didn't live through the Jimmy Carter things. There are a lot of Jimmy Carter, Joe Biden comparisons, and I understand and respect all of those. But people who are my age, who are in their 40s now, we've got mortgages, growing kids, and all that, are seeing things and reacting to things that they haven't lived through before. And watching Donald Trump make good on these promises, to me, we have a great opportunity in front of us to show what the Republican Party can really be about. And it's many of those things you just described.
Yes, and remember, the first things that Biden did with that flurry of executive orders was about reversing all of Donald Trump's border wall issues. And that was never discussed during the campaign. I mean, they always complained about the wall, but never discussed was the specifics, just like with Kamala, of policy. So nobody had any idea that was going to be the first things he did as the major policy move that changed the country on that day into the dumpster fire we've turned into. There was no discussion about that. What people are going to find is that everything Trump said, and it was plenty, is what you're going to see. So you might be surprised by technique or by strategy, but he won a sweeping mandate, being blunt about everything imaginable: tariffs, deportation, the economy, regulations, energy, Israel, right, the border in general, the taxing, every single thing. You're going to see him act on, and you're not going to have some surprise secret agenda that is going to show up, because he talked about everything. And Biden, Harris, and Harris-Waltz, when people won't say what they're going to do, they know you won't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you run for the hills. Yes. And we did. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. God bless America. Tammy, God bless you. Thank you for being with us today. Lots to discuss, of course, and always look forward to having you back again soon.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, dear.
Take care.
Talk
Bye-bye.
to you soon.
Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor, Association of Mature American Citizens columnist, best-selling author, and her latest book, Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. The thing I appreciate the most about Tammy Bruce is her approach to the topic of politics and everything that's going on in our news cycle right now. It gets before the persuasion out there of the pundits or the candidates or the electeds that are out there, and it talks about where people are. It talks about how people consume this and how they process it. And then, of course, how those emotions are manipulated against us in order to try to pull something out of you, namely a vote. Fear Itself. Go check it out by Tammy Bruce. Quick break.